Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. And today's wonderful day is Dr. Sally Good Body, Good Brain podcast. And today I am very, very fortunate to be talking to somebody from the island of Cyprus. Amazing, huh? She is an amazing artist. She's also a podcaster, and she puts people together who want to podcast together. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to Noemi Beres, who is going to tell us a little bit about how art actually impacted her life and her work.
Thank you so much for having me today, Dr. Sally. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you.
Well, how are things on Cyprus? Is it the weather gorgeous, or what's going on over there this time of year?
Not anymore. Today, actually, it's rainy and in storms, but usually it's very nice weather and with a lot of sunshine. Like I would say 300 something days, and we have only sunny days per year. But today is rain, and it's very much needed.
Yes, us too in Texas, in the South Texas. We've gone for like literally 4 or 5 weeks with no rain, and people rely on the rain to make their hay harvest so they can feed their cattle, so they don't have to buy extra feed. So tell me a little bit about how you were born in Hungary. How did you get from Hungary to Cyprus?
Yeah,
that's a lot. You're going to say airplane or boat, right?
Plane, yeah. plane, yeah. Well, I always loved traveling. And since I was a kid, my parents, I always loved to travel with my parents. They took me to different European countries especially in the Eastern Bloc. We traveled a lot, Bulgaria, Poland, Czech Republic. So everything that was in our neighborhood. And I loved it. And so I became an exchange student when I was age 16. I was in Denmark. I lived in Denmark. I studied in Denmark for a year, and I studied Danish. That's why I speak Danish. And that's why I have, master's degree in Danish linguistics. And it was in my blood somehow. So first moved to Ireland in when was it? 2004. Yes, that was the time we moved to Ireland, and we lived there for 7 years. I mean, Ireland is a beautiful country with, rich history, rolling green hills, but it was very cold and very rainy. So we decided to move to a Mediterranean country, which was Cyprus. And that's how I ended up here 13 years ago.
Yes. I love Ireland too, but that's why they make those gorgeous sweaters.
Yes, correct.
And so then you talked about a little bit about losing a family member that sort of propelled you in a state of grief, and you got out of it in a sort of unusual kind of way.
Yes, that's right, Dr. Sally. So my dad was diagnosed with cancer in 2017. And that's always a horrible news to any family. So it was a very long and very painful journey for the whole family, from 2017 until 2019, when he passed away. And also a couple of months later, my grandma, my father's mother, had an accident, and she passed away too, just 1 day before Christmas. So that was my 2019, and plus my dad passed away actually on my son's birthday. So that was also like some extra. Yeah, it's so hard to celebrate my son's birthday because it's always my dad's death anniversary as well. So as I said, 2019 was a very, very hard year. And and then pandemic appeared, in 2020, in early 2020. And because we had an online travel related business, we lost our business too to pandemic because nobody could travel, and that was it. So we had to figure out and start again from scratch and start a new business. I was grieving. I lost the business. So I was in a kind of a dark space at that time. And that was, I would say, but it was in March or April in 2020. So I was always, in heart, I'm a self-taught artist, and I never studied art, but I always loved art. And I was always the creative type. I drew, I painted, I made jewelry, anything that was creative, which is very, very, very close to my heart. So when I was grieving in 2020, I went back to art, and I had exhibitions before. Based on my collages I made, and also made some art installations, and we have artist meetups in different parts, different countries in Europe, and that was amazing. So but everything stopped obviously because of the pandemic. So what I thought in 2020, okay, so I need something to get me out of that dark space, and just to do something that calms me down and I can express my deepest, darkest emotions. And that was art. So I started to sew collages on canvas, and I started to sew my family memories together on a canvas. And that's how I made my hand-sewn collages from 2020. And it was an incredible journey because it was a form of meditation for me. Every evening when I went to bed, before I went to bed, I just, I was in bed, and you can actually make collages in bed because you just sew things. And so I put my headphone on, I had music, audiobook on, or a podcast, and I started to work on my collages. And that was a very, very special and unique way of meditation for me from 2020.
Yes, and it's also a way of remembering the relationship, because you're looking at their picture while you're also creating something that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So you have behind you several of those wonderful creations.
Yes, I have them.
Can you do just a little pan with your laptop, just so we can see how gorgeous they are?
You can see that's a big one there. Yeah.
Yes, beautiful. Is that your mom and dad or grandma in the wedding picture?
No, actually, those are relatives that I didn't know. So those are from my family, but I don't know them. And that's actually a postcard that I got from my grandparents when they took me to Venice, to Italy, when I was around 7 years old. And I kept the postcard.
Good memories.
Yes, absolutely. And those two postcards are from the island of Mallorca, from Spain. And I really enjoyed Spain and Mallorca. And actually, we were planning to move there, but then we changed our mind and decided to move to Cyprus. But I had fond memories of Mallorca, on the Balearic Islands, and it's just a beautiful place. So all these memories, I'm just collecting them and putting them on canvas.
And do you take other people's memories and do the same thing?
I would love to, actually. This is a passion project of mine, so it's not a business for me because, by trade, I'm a podcast connect. I am the co-owner of the Podcast Connections podcast booking agency. So this is a passion project. But if someone would tell me, it's like, hey, Noemi, I would love you to sew my memories together and put it on a canvas, I would do it gladly for anyone. So absolutely.
Oh, that would be so precious for them to have that.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I think you would, because of your artistic eye, you would see ways to putting them together, or colors or whatever, and it would be totally unique to them.
Yes, that's right. And because these colors and shapes and forms, they always come to me. I don't really plan any collages. I have different materials. I collect a lot of stuff. I'm not a hoarder, but I need to collect many things to put them on canvas. And so I can make something out of nothing, basically, with a few bits of pieces, like textile or buttons, old buttons, or lace, or anything, basically.
Yes, yarn. And it's your your creative intuition that leads you towards those particular elements of fabric or whatever is there for you to create the collage. So all that it is very meditative. You get lost in it. You could probably sit down and like look at the clock and like 2 hours have gone easily, or maybe
I
even
know.
4.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, you get really in the zone and there you go. It's just so relaxing. So tell me how you got connected into podcast connections. How did that come about?
Well, because because of the pandemic, our business basically disappeared. We had to
Mhm.
pivot, and that was the pivot. Luckily, we had a mentor, an Irish guy who was into uh, podcasting before anyone else, I think, in Europe.
Mhm.
And he started a course on how to start a podcast booking agency, and we participated. It was low investment, and it was, I think we just completed it in under a few weeks, and that was
Mhm.
it. So we started our own podcast booking agency and started to get our clients. And I would say it wasn't like my dream to be a podcast booking agent, because obviously before 2020 I didn't even listen to podcasts. So for me it was, we needed to do something in order to pay the bills. And so we started this new business, new venture, but I didn't know how much joy and how many amazing connection it will bring to me during the past 4 years. And we also made a 6-figure business out of it. So it was a very long and very hard journey, but it was definitely worth it, especially meeting those amazing people that I met through this journey.
Yes, and I was speaking to another podcaster. We were like joking around. He uses the last name Better, and I said, "Well, I'm good, but you're better." Um, and so he is a podcaster who makes a living at podcasting. We're going
Mm-hmm.
to do something together. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it's going to be fun. No matter what it is, it'll be fun. Um, and so I was talking to him about a month ago, and I was talking about how intimate it is to have someone's voice inside your earbud, to just
Mm,
listen to the sound of their voice. Like today,
yeah.
we're going to do a YouTube. You can see us on YouTube if you go to Good Body Good. Actually, if you go to Sally Good Ph.D, you'll actually see us. But we'll be on every major podcast that exists across the planet, um, and they will be listening to us. And it's just you can hear the tonality change. You can hear when people are like super inspired, or they get even when they get like a little emotional. You can hear it
Mm.
in their voice. And I'm a very good listener, having been a psychologist for 20 years. So I listen for those things. It's sort of like, oh, I'm hearing something under there. You're not talking about it, but it's under there. So let's
Yeah.
pull that rug up and see what it is. Okay. So podcasting is great for that. Um, and you have met some of the most fabulous people. I've met some of the most fabulous people, both through connections of connections and also through LinkedIn. Um, I run across, I tell people I am curating the most fantastic, talented women on the planet. They're coming into my tribe. They're, yes, and they're all fabulous. I wish someday we had a teleporter that we could end up all in the same place at the same time, and we would never stop talking. We'll be like talking and talking. And I don't want to lay that on women because I am an introvert by nature. And you probably are too.
Mm.
I
I'm in the
don't
middle. I'm in the middle.
feel like I can fake it. I can fake it at a party. But my most bestest times is when I meet like just one person or maybe two persons, and we sit down and have something that goes. I like to go deep instead of
Yeah.
shallow. So when
Yes.
we
I'm
can
I'm the
go
same. Yeah.
a little bit deeper, and I think our audiences appreciate that because they get shallow on television all the time, and we're giving them something more authentic, and they can
Mm.
hear it when they're listening.
That's so very true. And that's why I love podcast guesting, because you met so many amazing hosts and so amazing people across the globe. Thanks to StreamYard, thanks to Zoom. I would never met these people without being a podcast guest. And you are so true that, television is just so shallow. And that's why I don't watch TV since 2020, I stopped doing that. But I listen to a lot of podcasts now. So, and just, I think it's so much better. And you listen to these open, vulnerable conversations when you learn so much about people, about their stories, the way they share it. It's really, really inspiring and valuable.
Yes. A couple of weeks ago, I interviewed a woman from Pakistan. Now, Pakistan's quickly becoming another tech mecca. I mean, there are businesses there that are owned by Pakistani people. They're super, super into AI and all these kinds of things. But women traditionally there have not owned their own businesses. As she explained it to me, you stay in the house of your father until he finds someone suitable for you to marry. Then you marry, and then you're transferred from his house over to your husband's house. And there's no in between there. You don't have the option of having your own business or doing things. And so she was telling me this from the viewpoint of a mother of three, the youngest one being age 2. And she's working, and she just got an award from being the most, I don't know, the most like sought after or the most popular branding agent through LinkedIn in all of Pakistan.
Amazing. That's an amazing story.
Yes. And when I started, she contacted me to pitch me her services, of course. And I started talking to her and I said, "You're very interesting. I want to know more about you." And so we started talking, and it ended up being a podcast. And I don't know who will listen to it, what type of people will listen to it, but she had some most inspiring things to say, like, you have to believe in yourself. You have to love yourself. She says, if anyone can do it, if I can do it in Pakistan with a family, anyone can do it. And her goal was to build shelters for the people there and they're very, very poor. They beg on the streets. And she said, my goal is to build a shelter in every big city so they have a place to go.
That's
and
amazing.
We talked about the sort of the philosophical, ideological, you can put a lot of names on it, idea of the more you give, the more you get. And she calls it the wheel of karma because she's Hindu. I tell people that are really, really broke, when you acknowledge that you're really broke and you talk about it all the time, guess what's going to happen? You're going to just stay broke.
Yeah.
Because your brain, that's all it hears.
Yes,
but if you
so
take
true.
some of that brokenness away and start giving it away to other people, then the wheel starts to turn in your direction.
Yeah, so true. And I'm part of a community. It's called the Go Giver community, led by Bob Berg and Kathy Tagenel. It's a shout out to them. And they are amazing people. Bob and John David Mann wrote the book called The Go Giver. And I became member of the community about 3 years ago now. And yes, and that's all about that. So what you give, that's what you get. I mean, this is just so important to serve people, to help people, and it will come back to you in tenfold, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And the more people I actually start interviewing, there's that underlying thread that they all have, which you just articulated so well, is that if you want to have a business where it does good, you make money at it so that you can have an impact in the world. So you can take that money and give it to other people who in turn can give it to other people, and the wheel just keeps turning. My pet project is rescuing sometimes older dogs. My last one I got, she's 8. She is a full-blooded pit bull, and she is gorgeous. If I could say that she would be in a beauty contest, she would win as a pit bull, because she's got this beautiful, muscular, broad shoulders and a waist that's like T90, and she is so sweet and so smart. I had to drive about 7 hours to pick her up, and we walked out to the car, and she hopped right into the back seat, fell asleep. And when I came home, all the other dogs were there to meet her. I always keep them separate for a little bit,
Of course.
just so they can get acclimated to each other. Um, and she just fit right in. The other sort of part bully, they're like best friends. They're like, let's hang together. You're kind of like my type. Let's hang together. Um, so that's my passion for adopt, don't shop. Help people rescue. And on LinkedIn, if you're, I want to laughingly say LinkedIn has become an adopt a pet kind of program because my feed is just full of, please rescue Milo before he has to go to the bad place and somebody's going to hurt him. And it tugs at my heart because really, I would take them all. I would take them all if I had somebody to manage it for me, like a doggy herder.
I feel the same way about cats. I love
Uh huh.
cats, and I'm a cat person, and we have a cat, and she was a stray cat around the house where we moved in, and obviously she was around, and now she's our cat, and now she has kittens, and so I just love them all. And actually, what you mentioned, there are so many people are taking cats from Cyprus to the US and to different countries because we have about 1 million cats in Cyprus and about 700,000 people only. So we have more cats than people. And so many people who come on holiday here, they see that they are around the hotels and around different places. So they basically get them all or they try to get them and they adopt them and they send them to the US or to different European countries because we have so many cats who are stray cats and living in the streets. And yeah.
Yes, and there are other countries that have like a huge dog population.
Right.
Um,
Yes.
I used to live in Hawaii, and
Mm.
the chickens have taken over. They're in they're and nobody feeds them. They eat bugs. They take care of
Mm.
themselves. They have little baby chicks that fall on the ground. Even the dogs don't bother them. I guess they got pecked too many times, right? And so now they're all over the beaches. And when you go out to the beach, you look and there's just gorgeous chickens hanging out in the trees and everything. So they know how to take care of themselves. They're very good at
Yeah.
that.
They're
So
living their
tell me
best
a little
life,
bit.
probably.
Oh yes, now tell me a little bit. You have a son. Do you have more than
Yes.
one child?
No, only one son. He's 12. And yeah, he's bilingual. He has perfect British accent because he goes to a British private school locally here in Cyprus. We have a lot of British and American schools. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, obviously he's the love of my life. So,
Did he learn
yeah.
Danish?
No, English. I mean, his first, I mean, because he's Hungarian, I mean, that's his mother tongue, but because he's
Mhm.
bilingual, English is his basically second language, but I would say like even first compared to Hungarian. So he speaks
Mhm.
both fluently. Yeah.
It's so interesting how they like are just sponges and they absorb it.
Mm,
When I ask, her name is Shazar, how she learned English because they don't have English speaking schools there, not like other
right.
places where they actually prepare you for an enterprise of some kind.
Yeah.
She learned to speak English from watching old movies.
Well,
Now,
I
if
mean, there's different ways, so you can do that totally.
I'm not sure I could learn to speak Danish or Hungarian or Pakistani from watching movies. I'm not sure I could do that. I'd have to watch a lot of them. Um, I do like watching Telemundo, which is the Spanish station here.
Mm,
I because I studied French, I can read the closed captions because it's the
yeah.
same root words. So I can understand what they're saying. And what I love about it is they actually send their reporters into harm's way. Whereas most American reporters are like making too much money to get shot at. So they stay on the roofs of places like Tel Aviv and don't really go into harm's way.
Mm,
But these people are gung ho. And I give them like kudos for doing it because they're reporting the real on the ground news. So you get to see
okay.
exactly what's going on.
Wow.
And how about Cyprus? Do you have like local news stations or you have stations that have different languages or because you have like a country that's sort of split in half basically.
Yes, correct. Yeah. Because I don't really watch news, so I don't watch local news at all. Obviously, they speak Greek, and the other part they speak Turkish, and it's really hard to learn Greek in Cyprus because there are a lot of people from all over the world, especially from different countries. So even I learned. So I'm trying so hard to learn Greek, but because I can't practice with anyone, it's really hard to actually learn it. So I can read Greek, but I'm just not getting there. And 13 years passed and I'm still not fluent. And it's the same with kids. Like if they go to a private school, it's really hard for them to practice Greek because all the kids are from different countries. In my son's class, there are about 10 different nationalities at the moment. So obviously the common language is English. That's what they use. And I mean, Greek is, they learn it, but they're not a huge fan of it because it is a hard language to learn and you need to learn the spelling, the writing. And that's a whole another story because it's a different alphabet. It's a Greek alphabet. So
Oh, yes. I was going to say a total different alphabet, to learn something.
Yeah.
Like it's trying to learn Russian. Like a total.
Similar,
totally
very
different.
similar. Yeah, very similar.
So
I used to learn, a little bit.
Let's get back to your art because it's
Yes.
fascinating to me that you sort of were drawn to it, in a time of grief, and it sort of sustained you through different aspects of dealing with the loss of your dad, and then your granny. Because I'm going to guess you were close to Granny.
Yes, I was close. I mean, she was the only grandparent who was actually alive. I lost my grandparents from my mother's side when I was about 6, 7. And both of them in the same year. And then I lost my granddad to cancer when I was around 20s, early 20s. And then my grandma was the only living grandparent. So yeah, I was close to her for sure. Yeah.
Yes. And this adventure, this podcasting connections adventure that you're still in, are you seeking guests or podcasters, to hook together? Are you still looking for those types of people?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can call ourselves, like matchmakers in the podcasting world because we are like a middleman between our clients and we help them to get on quality podcast shows and help to share their knowledge, help to share their stories. But we also work with podcast hosts because many of them want to be on others' podcast to promote their own business and to promote their own podcast. So it's fun. So it works both ways, and it's absolutely fun to connect people, and not just connecting people, but also many times they are building a friendship or even business together after they had a podcast interview, because there are so many possibilities when you are a guest in a podcast, because it doesn't stop there. When we stop recording, we can network together, we can start a common business venture, or we can we can be friends. And this is just amazing how people connect and how everything is intertwined in the world of podcasting.
Yes, because I will meet someone. They'll send me a connect on LinkedIn, and we'll just have like a few hellos. How are you? Where do you live? Blah blah. Nothing really extraordinarily deep or anything like that. And then I'll meet someone else who also knows that person that I just met, and they said you need to get to know that person because that person is amazing. And so I'll send them like a little coffee connect thing, and we'll spend like 10-15 minutes talking, and boom, we know immediately. I call it my dolphin pod. We'll know immediately that we're in the dolphin pod, that we're not sharks and we're not out to make money to make money. We're actually out to make money to do good in the world, so that we have an impact. And that word that people are beginning to percolate now that there's so many baby boomers, legacy. How are you going to be remembered in the world?
Yes. So important. Your legacy.
Right. Because unless YouTube shuts down all the podcast interviews or Spotify shuts them all down, we keep on going. Imagine that. The sound of your voice, the sound of my voice keeps going on and on and on. And what we talk about, it will be just as relevant today as it will 5 years from now. Because with the advent of AI, we have to, first of all, learn it because it's going to permeate everything. Secondly, we have to validate that it's telling us the truth because sometimes it makes stuff up. It has hallucinations of its own.
Yeah.
And third, the human connection is going to be even a higher level of need for so many people because it's a lonely world being a solopreneur.
Yes.
That's why I like to be in a community like you're in your community. It's so that connection where you can see how people are having challenges. Like one of my friends' sister has ovarian cancer and she's staying with her post-surgery. And it's difficult because she wants to manage her, but she also has to back off and let her figure it out for herself. Like what level of activity is she going to have? No, you don't need to stay in bed all day. You need to get up and go do stuff. But you can't be a drill sergeant. You have to also be supportive and all those things. Yeah. So all those things that we're learning about now, like before the advent of this creature.
Yes.
we would sit down. I lived in San Francisco for about 8 years. And I'm going to date myself. I'm going to say it's before people had mobile phones. I had a phone in my car that was hooked into the electricity of the car, and I could call people from my phone, which I thought was terribly cool. It was very James Bondian. It was like, I have a phone in my car, you know. And now looking back, you go like, oh. But anyway, I had a phone in my car. But when I went into a cafe to have a coffee, and I would have a book that actually was a real book.
Yes, not audiobook or ebook or whatever book.
Line on it. And I would sit down with my coffee and my book, and usually like early afternoon after I kind of finished the work I was doing for the day, I'd be reading my book, and invariably there'd be people around me and we'd start a conversation. Nobody would ever ask me what my name was, what I did, what my phone number was, or where I lived. Nobody ever asked that because we were so interested in what was going on with the book. Why was I reading this book? What was I getting from this book? Would I recommend this book? A whole bunch of things would come up, but it would be totally different than now. Now you'd just be submerged in your smartphone because it has so much stuff in there. Yeah, of course, books on tape, you know, all those things.
That too.
You can read so many wonderful things written by people all over the world. I read an article this morning on LinkedIn. And honestly, it would have been the same article I would have written. I wrote a letter to the person. I said, thank you for writing this article because now I don't have to. I can just share it with all my friends and they'll see immediately what I'm talking about.
Yes. Yeah. The power of social media. Before we started our podcast booking agency, I did a lot of content creation, social media marketing, and it takes up so much time and effort. And you are just really in a whole different planet or a whole different new world when you do that. But we need to find some kind of balance in our life or not balance. I don't really like that word, but like kind of harmony between the two, the real world and between our life on social media and our phone.
Yeah, harmony and alignment. Because if you are out of alignment, I don't care how good you are at anything, it's not going to click. It's just not going to click. That's why I tell people my zone of genius is having the 30,000 foot view and seeing what's possible. Because sometimes people, particularly women in this era, we're like, I hadn't even thought about this for 20 years. Like the old feminist days where like we can make as much money as men can and we're just as smart and we can do blah blah blah. Hey, we're still only making 63 cents or might have gone to 72 per dollar that a guy's making because we do not promote ourselves.
Yeah.
it's considered a little gauche or a little bit too much, to like put yourself out
Mm.
there. Whereas guy is saying, "Hey, look at me. Look at the stuff I can do. Come on, I'll help you do this." But women, not so much. But I'm
No.
hoping that's changing because that's what I'm telling people. Make an impact by not playing small.
Yes, that's so important. And I used to work with a couple of clients, and they only wanted to be on podcasts that were run by female hosts, and I didn't get
Mhm.
it. So why? Because I don't know. They explain that they're not comfortable being on male podcasts because they just, and I just didn't understand why. Is that because I'm doing podcast guesting and I'm getting on podcasts like male, female hosts, and I'm
Mhm.
equally fine with male or female podcast hosts. And I think we
Mhm.
need to get out there and we need to get on those podcasts where we have the male hosts too, because that's the only way where we can feel we can grow our self-esteem and we can be ourselves and show that yeah, we can do it too. There's no
Mhm.
difference between, and I think that's really important.
Yes, and also to the sometimes the reach of different
Mm.
podcasts, depending on what the subject title is very, very, very high level, very far, and we need to
Yeah.
accept that. Yes, sometimes um, I don't know. Have you heard the name Pat Flynn?
Yes.
Okay, this is a shout out to Pat Flynn. About 9 years ago, I started thinking about doing a podcast. I had a WordPress website, and Pat Flynn had a product that would help you set up your website, and it was called Fusebox or something like that. But it had so much technical stuff. You had to have a board, an EQ
Mm.
board. You had to have all this. Like I have a microphone, but I don't have it on today because my HP's microphone is fabulous. Um,
Yes, it is.
Yes, and so it's so much easier. And now we can actually use our cell phone to do all the podcasting in the world and even edit from our cell phone anywhere in the
Mm.
world. So I think to myself, if I'd started a podcast 9 years ago, what would I be doing now? You you would never know. But what I want to leave people with this idea, and I want you to leave people from your idea because you have such a wonderful message about art transforming your life, is that solopreneurs, particularly women, need a community.
Mm.
And when I actually actively hunt for people that I can help, because I started out in the business world, in the computer world, before I ever got a degree in psychology. So I kind of like did things a little backwards. So if a woman business owner is stuck like $4,000 or $5,000 a month and they want to create an impact in the world, create a real business that has a legacy that they can either sell or have their family take it over, um, that's what I do. And I love getting people in who have so much talent, but it hasn't been connected in the way that makes them really get big.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I like to do. I love to see other people win.
And that's
I call
amazing. And
myself
that's
Yeah, I call myself the queen maker. I'm not the king maker. I'm the queen maker. We're going to make more
I love
queens
it. I
in
love
the
it.
world.
Yeah.
We're going to make them be happy with playing big and not worrying about what they look like on camera, how old they are, what they have to say, or any of those things, because you are uniquely you,
Yes.
and you only you can do your art. There's no one else can copy you.
So very true. Absolutely. I agree with you, Dr. Sally, 100%.
So, what would you tell people? First of all, two things. We're going to have show notes, and in the show notes are going to be how to get in contact with you. If someone's listening to this podcast and they'd like to be on a type of podcast, you can connect them. That's part of your job. Or if they have a podcast and they're looking for guests, you also can do that as well. And you're in contact with some fabulous people out there in the big world. But what would you say about how art is part of self-care? I would say that's part of your meditation, your mindfulness, all those kinds of things.
Yes, absolutely. You don't have to be an artist in order to create art. And I know so many people are shy about it and they don't want to share any kind of artwork, but you don't have to. This can be a passion project. You don't have to sell your art. You just do it for yourself, as you said, for self-care and for mindfulness, for just to meditate and just to feel better and to cope with anxiety, stress, or trauma, or grief, or whatever you're dealing with. And you can just draw, you can just use a color book or a few pencils, a few color pencils, and that's it. You can just start like coloring mandalas and voila. I mean, you're not an artist, but you're creating something that calms you, that helps you, nurtures your body and soul. So I think it just starts doing something. It can be crocheting, it can be sewing, it can be dancing or drumming or whatever you want to choose, or even cooking. I mean, I love cooking. It's very therapeutic to cook. And so yeah, absolutely, just start doing something today. Just small things, small steps, and you will get there.
Yes, and it also keeps these things busy. And so when we're doing something with our hands, it has a sort of a natural calmative effect on our brain.
Yeah.
I tell people worry is using your ability to manifest something you don't want.
So true. So very true.
Yeah. So let's think about all the positive, wonderful things we want for ourselves, for our children, for the world. And wake up in the morning thinking about those things and say to ourselves, as Napoleon Hill supposedly said every morning, God, what are you and I going to do today?
Yes. Start a day like that. Exactly.
Yes. Well, this has been delightful seeing you in Cyprus.
Likewise in Texas.
I know it's on my bucket list, as well as Iceland. It's on my bucket list.
Yeah, same here. I love Iceland.
Yes. It's on my bucket list. But for now, people can have the pleasure of both seeing you on YouTube and listening to you on podcasts. And so when they do, hit like and subscribe so that we get more followers that can learn about all the wonderful things that art has to offer to our own mental health and our own bodies and self-care and way of being in the world. So, Noemi, thank you so much for coming on board today. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to so many conversations in the future. It doesn't have to be on a podcast.
Yes, I feel the same way. Thank you so much for having me today, Dr. Sally. It was an absolute pleasure.
And so that concludes this episode of Healing Through Creativity, how art transforms your life. Take a look at the show notes and find out how to contact Noemi and learn more about her. It's a fabulous thing to get a new person in your life that can really, really help you be a better self. So until next time, we'll see you later.